So this summer, Model magazine started a feature that they have every 2 months called Prototype to Model, in which they ask modelers to submit a prototype photo that inspired their actual model. And the very first one was from Dennis Egert, who many of you might know, and he's got a beautiful layout. And I'm not going to show you the photos of that because I didn't get permission from Model to do that. But he had a photo that had been captured, and then he faithfully reproduced it on his layout. I mean, to the locomotive, to the buildings, everything, just a beautiful match. And since then, about every 2 months, they've had that same feature appear. And I thought, well, it might be fun for me to give it a try. So I thought I could see what I could do to put this together. And I decided to have the last steam engine in Baraboo. And I happened to have this photo taken by a professional photographer in Baraboo, and he's also a model railroader. It ended up being a friend of mine, but Ernie Mueller captured the Baraboo job, switching the house track at Baraboo, Wisconsin, in early spring of 1956. The Baraboo job was handled by a Class R1 10-wheeler by Northwestern, and its distinctive feature was all the locomotives had a clear vision tender, which had this unusual tender so they could see better forward and backwards, because the locomotive was used switching in town, but it also made runs to neighboring towns to switch the quartzite quarries, in which case the engine would not be turned. So they needed to have this clear vision tender. So a typical Baraboo job in the morning would switch the local industries in Baraboo, which included the Northwestern refrigerator shops. And here it is pulling cars to go there. And then in the afternoon, it would run to one of the quartzite quarries with what looks like ore cars, but quartzite is a very dense rock, and it's used to make the lining in blast furnaces. A very hard and durable rock. Here's a picture of one of the switchmen, Beanie Fox, on the last day of the Baraboo job, which was April 15th, 1956. He and a lot of the crew just lived across nearby, and they go home for lunch, and he came back with the camera, and his wife took a picture of him in the cab. So I thought, well, I want to do this with the Baraboo job. And this was my test photo. You can see Ernie's photo and my picture on the layout, which has a number of defects, but it was my first attempt. The photo lacks depth of field. The camera needs to be lower. The tender is not the signature clear vision tender. The engine number is wrong. The engine needs smoke. The tender needs leaking steam. The freight house does not have the stovepipe extension. I need to remove the diesel, the pile of ties, the pickup truck, and then add the right vehicles. I need another single sheath wooden boxcar on there. There needs to be crew members hanging off the boxcars. I need an engineer in the cab. And the ceiling shows and the corner is dark. So a lot of room for improvement.
But also a good start, because those buildings look perfect. So,
well, yeah, and this is
and you
just
got a good
an overview. And I had built all of the buildings to be faithful to what was actually on the track. So I knew I had at least an opportunity to reproduce that photo. So all the structures are scratch built out of styrene. The freight car dock is stained strip wood. And the locomotive is a hallmark brass locomotive. that I've got painted for 1385 because I model Baraboo, and if it didn't happen in Baraboo, I don't have a model of it, but 1385 does appear in Baraboo over history, so I needed to have that. But now I need to have 894, and the tender is really wrong. So the first thing I did was scratch build a tender to replace the other one, and I made it out of styrene, a few old cal scale castings I was able to find, and suggestions from people in the group said that I could use Micro Mart decals for the rivets, and that's what I did, and it turned out really nice. Now this is, I can put this on top of the other tender underframe, and they're interchangeable with each other, so I can make 894 when I want to. So now I made another test photo. Now I've got the right tender on there. Some of the buildings or the other things in the background are good, but the focus is not good. And I experimented a lot, and I ended up using 3 different cameras to find one that I could get enough depth of field to have the photo look good. And that was challenging. I've gone ahead experimenting with another angle here. And another angle, I've added the CMO boxcar in the background. I don't have a track there on my layout. I had to compress it from the actual layout. So I just have placed it there so I can simulate what the photo actually looked like. I still need room. That corner is dark and the ceiling appears, so I need to do more work on that. Another attempt at getting things better focus anyway, at least. Still, I took over 200 pictures, photos, with me just continually moving and changing things, trying to home in on that. Here's my first attempt. I've added a little wisp of steam coming off the tender. I've made my first attempt at smoke. Both of those are cotton balls that I've teased out. The smoke, I've got an armature that I can bend, and I've used some chalk. The crew now is some Walther's figures that I cut the arms and legs apart and repositioned them so I could replicate the men riding on the train. I don't often ask my wife advice because she doesn't really care what I do, but she said that the smoke did not look dark enough. So I made another smoke, and still not satisfied with that. I made yet a third one.
Mark, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What type of camera are you using?
Okay, so I have an old Nikon that I borrowed from my brother.
Okay, film or digital?
It's digital.
Okay, good.
And the other cameras I'd used before, they only had choices in 2 f-stops, and it just did not work. With my brother's camera, I could go to a better depth of field than the other 2 cameras that I had used.
Okay, with your digital camera, with the Nikon, to get that smoke to look a little bit more realistic, you actually tie a thread in the middle of the smoke, and for a long exposure with a polarizing lens on the front or a neutral density filter on the front where you can get a half a second, you move the smoke around with the thread and your arm is out of the picture and it appears wispy like real smoke.
I'd heard that was possible, but I never attempted it. Because I'd heard people would like, if it was springy, you could kick it, get it in motion, and then take the picture and get that wispiness to it.
Yeah,
And
it takes two people. It takes a person to push the shutter button or trigger the release if it's an electric release, and then one to move the smoke.
I think I could also do some editing after the photo was taken on that area if I wanted to, and use smudge or some other
Yeah,
technique.
that's not
I felt that,
that's not fun though.
no, but I also felt that would be cheating because that wasn't in the rules of they wanted two photos that didn't want editing. I could have done better with editing then.
Right. It still looks like a good picture.
Yeah, so this is the photo I finally ended up with. And here's a side-by-side comparison of the two photos. So I was
Damn.
happy with what I had done. And then I tried to contact Model Railroad magazine, but they're in the throes of moving to Chattanooga. And I emailed to one guy and he passed it to another guy. And then finally, Dennis Eggert, who had got his submitted, told me to contact Tony Coaster, who I did. And he said that they would take the photo, that they would take the information and they would submit it, but I still haven't heard back from anybody. So we'll see.
Looks good.
So I don't know if it's even possible. I'm going to try and hold up. So this is Dennis Eggert's layout here. And let's see. There's the prototype photo. Pretty good. And then here's his model. He's got the same.
I'm not, what are we looking at? I'm not seeing Dennis's stuff.
Okay, I'm holding it up to my face. I don't know if you don't see my image then in the corner. I guess I can't maybe do this. I'd like to show it through my camera, what I'd like to do.
Yeah, I could see it. If you put you want to see it better, put your Zoom client in change your view to standard maybe.
Should I stop sharing maybe?
Oh no, you want to hit side by side speaker, and then you could try that.
Oh, what I did was it says swap shared screen with video. So
No, you can do that, yeah.
I try it again, Mark, because now I should be able to see it.
Okay, so this is, do you see the digital photo or the photo of the prototype here?
Yeah.
Okay, and then this is Dennis's version of it. So he has the sand house, he has the locomotive, he has the cars in the background that match the prototype photo. He did just a fabulous job. I mean, mine is pretty good, but Dennis's is perfect. I mean, one for one matching. And some of the other articles that Northwesterners has, or Model Railroad magazine has have had similar ones in which they've done just a spectacular job of reproducing the prototype photo on their model railroad and then capturing it. So maybe someday you'll see this. Who knows if Model Railroad gets its act together and figures
right.
out. So that's all I've got to share. That's just been my latest project, trying to work out how I might be able to do this.
Yeah, it looks great. Good luck.
But again, I had to build the tender, and then I had to take different cameras and lots of angles and, like I said, over 200 photos till I finally got something that was close. But the camera angle is still wrong because when the prototype photo was taken, the Ernie was standing. He's about 5 foot tall, and even the camera that I had the best luck with is like 10 scale feet off of the ground, so I couldn't get my angle low enough so that you can see the roof of the freight house, and that should be pretty much all blocked. If I could have gotten lower to the ground, and one of my brothers suggested that I could build a mirror with a contraption to hold the camera so I could have an angle closer to the ground, but I elected not to even try and do that.
If you do that, you have to use a front surface mirror so you don't get a double reflection.
I knew it was going to be beyond my abilities, so I didn't even try, but it was a good idea. And anybody else got questions? Isn't much of a program. Just something I had.
No, it's great. Thanks for sharing that, Mark. It's really nice. And yeah, I think you did a really nice job of capturing that.
Mark, did you consider one of those new programs where you take the different focal points and then mix the photos into one?
I did, and it wasn't clear in the submittal whether those sorts of things were allowed. So
Okay.
that's why I did not do that, because
Okay.
I considered that I could get better smoke if I could digitally edit it later. The focal point could have been solved by having that program, but I elected to do it the old-fashioned way.
Well, it's an interesting conundrum, because where do you draw the line? Because if you do that, then well, you could change the foreground. You can put a different sky in. I mean, and people do that in the magazines. They look great, but I think the idea here is trying to avoid photoshopping it to death. So,
Mark, the fact that there's a little wisp of steam at the back of the tenders suggests these R1s were also in passenger service.
Well, and maybe it had been used at one time that way, but in 1956, diesel had hauled passenger trains forever. And at least in Baraboo, there was a roundhouse that was down to 2 stalls. There were 3, but one of them was used for a crew quarters. And other than the R1 that was handling the Baraboo job, occasionally a Mikado would come up from Madison. Just a geography of it, between Baraboo and Madison is the Wisconsin River, and there's quite a grade to the river, then back up to Baraboo. And past Baraboo, the grades are excellent because they follow the Baraboo River. So a freight train coming down from the Twin Cities to Chicago could haul a lot of cars until it got to Baraboo, but it couldn't go down into the Wisconsin River Valley and then back up with all those cars. So they would drop some of them at Baraboo so they could make the grade at the other side. And a Mikado would come out and pick up those extra cars and then haul them back to Madison. He would also haul some cars with it that could be tacked on to the through freight to Minneapolis after the grades at the Wisconsin River. So there were cars being left at Baraboo so that the Mikado would lay over along with the R1 at night in Baraboo. And then they replaced the Baraboo job with a diesel after 1956. But that was only for a year, and then apparently business wasn't enough, and they didn't bother having a crew in Baraboo anymore. And it was just handled by the way freight. Madison to Elroy would switch the quarries. and the other businesses along the way.
Hmm.
So did some of you guys attend the Naperville?
Yes, I did.
Same here.
Had a great time.
Yeah, it was good.
So Greg, did you get in camping in Naperville?
No, I went camping. I did not stop at Naperville. So
Yeah, if he was there, he was hidden well.
Did Dennis Eggert bring his Tower CK with him, his display with the lighted signals at the crossing?
And Dennis wasn't there.
I was gonna
Okay.
say Jeff was, but I didn't see Dennis.
I think
Yeah,
this was
Jeff just came out on Friday afternoon after work.
Okay, yeah.
but he had that at Collinsville, I think.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, there was a character named Bob Blake there, and I saw Ron Christensen and, Bob Grillette and one or two. Oh, yeah, and that Tim Coyle guy. Saw some of the regulars, a lot of great clinics, wonderful models. Always a good event to attend.
I had wanted to be there, but I had to be in Ohio, so I was driving by there in both directions, but never did stop in.
Yeah, it was the same for me.
Mhm.
Was there anybody taking pictures of the models that anybody knows?
I took a few. I didn't shoot a lot.
I mean,
Um,
sometimes down at Collinsville, they put up a thing on the internet that you could see basically most of the models.
Did they have a model this year in which you got parts to build it, or was it?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, it
Oh.
was.
They did, but I forgot to pick mine up. Of course, I'm not building nothing. I'm not
So
building
did I.
anything anyway.
So did I, but Clark had extras, so I got one or two.
If I'd have got one, I'd give it to you, Bob, because I suspect my days of modeling cars are over.
I know.
So what
Wow.
was the model of?
It
Extra
was,
door.
Yeah, it was extra doors to make a door and a half boxcar conversion
Hmm.
out of a now I can't remember the road name. It wasn't something I'm familiar.
Was it a CB&Q? I don't remember.
No, it was I don't know. Doug, do you remember what it was?
no, I don't, because I didn't get one as a
You didn't get
speaker.
one either.
I wasn't in the first ones to get registered, so I missed out.
By the way, did anybody come up with a car for or a load for Mont on that CB&Q boxcar that he was interested in?
I started looking today, and then I had to go off and do some other things, and I'm going to try to follow up on that.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
sent him a couple in an email.
yeah,
Mm.
I think it was various industries. I saw something about carbide company in Keokuk, and appliance dealer or manufacturer, and some things like that. So
Yeah. I sent him what I knew about Galesburg.
Yeah, I saw your email.
Yeah.
mhm. Well, if you want a quick view of what few photos I took, I'll be glad to share them.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Oh, I cannot share. There we can.
Yeah, that might work better.
See if I can get this to. I don't know what screen you're seeing. Let me do something here.
The easel with the schedule changes on it.
Yep, there we go.
Oh, it's
So
an
this,
ad.
yeah, this was a slide in one of the clinics I attended. This was
Yeah,
company there.
I'm seeing your other screen. I'm seeing kidney or testicular cancer.
Oh, you don't want to see that.
Yeah.
So why are we,
There, that looks better.
Well, now we're seeing a big locomotive, but I think it's your
Big-
screen
Big
background.
boy.
yes, that's the big boy, and let me. Now are you seeing the screen,
Yep,
Yep.
the clinic updates? Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, let me. Yeah, that was, just from one of those clinics. This was, company there was selling Artitech models, so I was taking a couple pictures of those for a friend back home. Here's their HO scale combine. These are made in the Netherlands, but
Wow.
they're assembled and painted in Vietnam.
Hmm.
It was a great looking model.
They had some wonderful stuff. And then we, of course, things that caught my eye. Here's someone's M and St. L boxcar.
Hmm.
And someone's M and St. L caboose. And in the background, you can see a flat car with a grader on it. I believe this one had a Ron Christensen name attached to it.
Yeah, it is. That's mine.
Yep, and some information about the grader. Here's his overall display. A nice display, Ron, and we always appreciate you bringing stuff.
You know, I've been working on one of those Model Ts for that, from the company you just talked about. That's
Oh,
a
the
very,
Architect?
a very interesting model to build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I like your flat car here with the do not hump signs on the ends as well as the side for the grader. That's nice.
Doug, what is the name of that company that has the farm equipment?
Uh,
Architect.
Architect.
Art Tech, Art iTech. I get it. Okay, thank you.
A side note to that, it was the table with all that stuff on it was from Raynaud's models in Elburn, Illinois.
Right. Yep, they're the main dealer of them in the United States.
Yeah.
So
Young fella and his very lovely assistant were doing very well.
they had eye candy on the table and eye candy behind the table. I won't deny that.
Well, let's put it this way, he's a lucky guy, okay?
Yeah. So, and she was very nice to deal with. So then someone else brought an M St. L boxcar in with the I can't think, what's the name of this type of roof?
Viking.
Viking roof with
Galvanized.
the galvanized patches showing through. And here's one in the earlier paint with the earlier doors. So I'm not sure whose models these were.
There you go.
Oh, they were Clark's, because they were next to Clark's display of his green. Well, these are coming off my phone, so I have to wait for it to catch up with the computer, to catch up with the Zoom, to catch up with you. There we go. Now it's in
Yeah.
focus.
Hmm.
This is from his, was it Carlsberg town?
Mm-hmm.
He did a clinic on drop-in structures for, changing what a layout or module will look like. Here's another shot of it. But it's a nice, coal shed, grain elevator, steel bin with a corn dryer. Somebody was looking at the picture going, whose dryer is that? And I said, I think it's a Walther's. And he said, well, he's made some changes to it.
Yeah.
And knowing Clark, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yep, here's another shot of it. I only took pictures of what I really wanted to like. Here's his propane dealership. Again, just knowing Clark, he scratch built this in about 10 minutes, painted it 10 minutes later, and had it on the layout.
I got a
Which I
comment
covered.
on the truck. I think he copied me, and you and I, Doug, had conversations that truck was basically used for coffins.
Yeah.
Caskets,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah. I was surprised that he did that after our conversation.
Oh, he probably had it done before we completed the conversation.
Could be.
So, okay, here's a looking down on that grain elevator. Again, Clark does nice stuff. he finishes it well, so. Let's see, keep going. Oh, here's another slow down finger. There we go. More of an overshot, you know, we've got Clark's here in the front and Ron's stuff back here. This one's not in focus. Okay, yep, and somebody in the vendor room was selling a new book. I took a picture to send to some friends who are wanting to model the Minnesota area.
Hmm.
So I picked up a copy for them. And this is on the layout that was on display. Again, a grain elevator. Don't know why those caught my eye. I was only doing a clinic on grain elevators.
Hmm.
But this is that module group that they set up every year. You can see it roaming around in the background. So, but this was a nice looking model. Okay, let the computer and the phone catch up with each other here. There we go. There's Jeff.
Yeah.
In the background there.
So we know it was Friday afternoon.
Yes, I took these on Friday afternoon. You were correct. So here's George Tolman's model of a flat with a cat grader. We were looking at that, trying to determine which model he used for the grader. I'm
Yeah,
wondering if that's one of those Aerotech models
pretty nice.
or a 3D printed from someone else. But it was, he did a nice job finishing it off. George is a superb modeler. Here's another shot of it. Just again, you're just getting what catches my eye. So this is, I believe, our friend from up in the Twin Cities. Oh, he's usually with us on
Lester?
Thursday nights.
You talking about Lester Brewer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, these two might be Lester's models. Yeah, they are, because he had the flyers and the plastic sleeves
Yeah.
about them. Yeah, so, and then went back to the module display and realized that they were doing, a lot of their buildings are using a brick paper wrap.
Mm.
So I went back and snapped some photos of a couple of structures that somebody had built. Very effective looking, particularly with the, you know, the raised window detail here. And this, I believe, is a design preservations DPM building kit for the top. But that has got a nice look to it.
Yes, it does.
Can you back up one? I'm just looking at that gas meter and trying to say if that's three-dimensional or whether it's printed on the side.
Boy, that's a good question.
Yeah.
You know, I opened up the photo and zoomed in on it. It looks like it's printed. It's a printed photograph.
Hmm.
But it's got, you know, if it's a raised relief of any sort, like a 3D printing, they've put a lot of weathering around it. It like I said, they were effective looking structures for.
Has anybody attempted to take a photo and then print it and then glue it onto some sort
yeah.
of material?
Yep, just it's coming.
Yeah, there's been several cases of that.
Yep. So this was another, looks like an effective use of that technology is similar. And of course, I think that might even be Mr. Blake there. I'm not sure. Chatting with him and took a picture of a tree. And so this was the N scale setup. Oh yeah, and this was fellow brought me a book to look at. I'm looking for a copy of this now. So if you know one, let me know. And then the Ted Schniff's layout. So, but I'm going to back up here. Let's see, it'd be easier to do. I'll go back to photos because I did have a display, but I didn't take any pictures of, but, well, I thought I did take pictures of it, but apparently they're not here. Anyway, this was my grain elevator model that I took,
Mm.
one of them. I just finished it up. Well, that's before it was finished. Here it is, getting finished. But this was a hollow clay tile grain elevator, stood in Hampton, Iowa. And if you look real close, you can see the photo I used, just a little square.
Hmm.
A photo I found of clay tile, reduced it down to roughly HO scale, then played with it in Photoshop and then Publisher and printed out a full 11 by 17 sheet of all these little photos all put together to make a wrapper. And this is a piece of plumbing pipe or a couple of plumbing fixtures with a third one on top, and just did the wrapper around. And these hollow clay tile was typically 12 inches long, 8 inches wide, and 5 inches thick. And these are scaled down to where they're showing roughly 12 inches in length. What's really interesting was the whole photo was covered with a trademark, a white circle or whatever. You can't see it when it's reduced down this small.
Oh.
So, but I've got a fair number of compliments and comments from people about this grain elevator, and played with pan pastels a little bit for the first time. A little weathering here along the bottom, and what might be some pigeon droppings up here if I ever get any pigeons glued on there. So,
Model.
okay, we'll stop the share.
Yeah, very nice. Thanks,
Yep.
Doug.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, anybody, excuse me, anybody else have anything to share this evening?
I just want to say at that end scale module layout, a guy came up from behind me and said, "Are you Tim Coyle?" Just listening to my voice. I turned around. It was one of my fraternity brothers from Creighton University I had not seen in 45 years.
Oh my God.
Rick Hall is his name. He's been a member of that N Scale Club. I had no idea he was a model railroad. So we never talked about it in college.
That's fantastic.
Small world.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Mark. Thanks, Doug. That was enjoyable to see both of those things. Next week, Mont will be back with the part 2 of his favorite highway vehicles. So when you're done trick-or-treating, come on in and dial up the Zoom.
Yeah.
We will not be handing out candy. So,
Oh.
yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, we'll be enjoying that. So we'll look forward to that. And thanks everybody for joining today. We'll see you next week.
It's interesting.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.